Welcome to Grow Virtually, an online horticultural educational program presented by the Master Gardener Volunteers of Cobb County. Under the guidance of the University of Georgia Cooperative Extension Service, we grow gardeners.
Hello, everyone. My name is Linda Dobos, and I have been a Master Gardener since 2009. Why? Rapid and large-scale changes to our lands and waters means wildlife are losing the habitats they once knew. Every habitat garden is a step towards replenishing resources for wildlife such as bees, butterflies, birds, and amphibians, both locally and along migratory corridors. Why, again, I think we all understand that our world is changing, and those changes have had dramatic impacts on what were once thriving ecosystems that had developed over thousands or millions of years. Urbanization and massive changes in agriculture have disturbed nature's balance. There is an old Native American adage that says, if all the beasts were gone, man would die from a great loneliness of spirit. For whatever happens to the beast soon happens to man. All things are connected. Doing our part to help restore thriving plant and animal communities helps restore that balance. Our property sits on approximately 1/2 acre in northeast Cobb County on what we have been told is former pasture land. We have lived there for 35 years, and until our house and neighborhood were built there, the property was undeveloped. The front yard and house comprise approximately 1/4 of the property. Our backyard is another 1/4 of the lot. Over the years, we have removed some smaller trees and a tangle of vines, added a variety of perennials and shrubs, and mulches and pathways. Benches and containers add seasonal color, visual interest, and a place to rest in the shade. The remaining half is woodland that slopes down to a flowing creek, part of the Mabry Creek system, and we have turned the upper part of the slope into a shade garden full of shade-loving plants. We have created a 6 to 8 foot wide path from the shade garden down to the creek. It is covered with a thick layer of mulch. Native plants, where we could find them, were kept in place. We've added Indian pink, Solomon seal, woodland phlox, astilbe, Lenten roses, and many, many hosta. It is from this point we will talk about the process of enhancing our yard from a typical suburban shade landscape to a healthy wildlife habitat. What makes up a backyard wildlife habitat? 3 basic components: food sources, water sources, shelter for cover, and shelter for nesting. We will go into each one of those, but first there are also other considerations. All certifications require certain practices and conditions to be met on your property in order to qualify. Audubon, for example, requires that turf grass must make up less than half of the sanctuary area. Most of the grass in our backyard has been allowed to go to moss, not that we had a choice. It was going to do that anyway because of the shade and dampness, so we simply quit seeding and fertilizing that area. The National Wildlife Federation provides a certification checklist shown here. They require that you follow at least 2 of the 3 categories listed in the slide. You can download this from their website. Even if you have no desire to have your yard certified, all these sustainable practices are good for your yard, the environment, and the birds and the bees. We will look at what we did and why. It is always a good idea to take a broad look at your property and the surrounding area. In our yard, we were in pretty good shape as we had lots of trees and shrubs and relatively small lawn. Please note that we will be presenting programs on both native and invasive plants this fall, so be sure to register and learn more. For an Audubon certification, non-native invasive species such as English ivy, bamboo, Chinese privet, and others must make up less than 1/4 of the sanctuary area. Excuse me. In addition, about half the plants need to be native to Georgia, and there needs to be 4 layers of plants from ground layer grasses or wildflowers to shrubs. First, we will look at soil and water conservation. The goal here is to maximize use of rainfall and minimize use of municipal water and prevent erosion. We have done that in several ways. First, we have used mulch extensively on the property. It slows erosion, protects plant roots, and breaks down and improves the soil. Additionally, because our backyard area slopes from east to west, we adjusted our planting to slow down the obvious flow of water in that direction. As a consequence, there is very little erosion in that area. We minimize the need to irrigate by keeping our trees for shade and planting plants that do not require much water once matured. We have taken the approach of xeriscaping or water-wise landscaping to reduce the need for watering. Again, extensive use of mulch and ground covers help retain moisture around the plants and keeps them cooler on hot summer days and protected in colder winter days. As I said earlier, our property has a stream in the back. In order to protect water quality, it is important that any water entering our rivers and streams be as clean as possible. One of the recommended practices is to maintain a riparian buffer, which simply means a vegetated area right down to the stream bank. Plants filter out debris and pollutants, keeping the flowing water clean. You can see from the photos, the banks have been stabilized with rock, plants, and trees. To protect the slope, we have added azaleas, plumbeous, hostas, Lenten roses, and ferns. Please note that our spring plant sale and expo in April offers many of these plants from our yards and specialty vendors, so keep that in mind when you think about adding these to your landscape. Capturing rainwater off our roofs in rain barrels, using drip or soaker hose irrigation, or planting a rain garden in those areas that collect lots of water are also recommended practices for maintaining wildlife habitats. If you are unfamiliar with rain gardens, you can visit our wildlife and rain garden that is located behind the Cobb County Water Department Laboratory at 662 South Cobb Drive in Marietta. You can enter from Atlanta Road. If your yard contains large low spots and drainage is an issue, this is one solution which is beneficial for plants, animals, and the environment. Exotic plants are some of our favorites, but if you want to create a native wildlife habitat that thrives, you need to plant the plants that are native to Georgia, Piedmont, not some other part of the planet. It is okay to have some, but you need to try and maintain or plant natives to be successful. Who doesn't have English ivy? We, of course, did, and so do our neighbors. We frequently pull poison ivy and English ivy with our neighbor's permission on the other side of his fence. Invasive plants take over and do not allow native species to grow. Native plant species are essential to native wildlife. One cannot live without the other. Audubon requires that non-native invasive species make up less than 1/4 of the sanctuary area and that half the area contain native plants to Georgia. They are more restrictive than the National Wildlife Federation criteria. At the outset of our project, we removed English ivy from the woodlands and the fence line, which is a constant problem that can get out of hand quickly. Best practices prefer that you manually remove it rather than spraying it with herbicides. It's been our experience that it removes very easily after a heavy rain or several days of rain. Please note that we have upcoming presentations on native and invasive species, so be sure to register and learn more about them. Integrated pest management is a research-based practice of growing plants or crops that reduce the needs for pesticides. Planting native plants in your yard is one way to help. Better yet, go organic, and yes, we are planning to have a Grow Virtually program on organic gardening in November, so stay tuned. My husband Ron and I also make it a goal to keep as much organic matter on our property as we can. That means sticks, grass clippings, leaves, and more are gathered, piled, and turned into compost, which we put back in the soil. You do not need anything fancy, just an area removed from the house and easy to get to. Trees that fall in the woodland area stay where they fall. On the rest of the property, we plant around any stumps and leave them to decompose. Food, water, and shelter are the three things we need to survive. For food sources, I have listed Audubon's. You need to have 4. National Wildlife Federation requires 3. Note that the list contains food sources that are dependent on humans to supply and food sources that other plants supply. In our yard, we have a hummingbird feeder, which is basically filled with sugar water, and a host of host plants that we will talk about next. There are a number of food sources to consider. Here are some examples from our yard. Huge and common in our area, the tulip poplar is actually a member of the magnolia family, is native to eastern US and provides bountiful supplies of nectar in the spring. The good news is that many of us have these giants on our property. You might not realize you have them because they do not bloom until they are 12 to 15 years old. They are one of the first places the bees go to when they leave the hive in the spring after the temperatures go above 60 degrees. There are several varieties of hickory trees that are found here in Georgia. I liked this photo of the shagbark hickory nut, so I am showing you this one. Most homeowners will surely know if their property contains a nut-producing tree, as pecans, hickories, and walnuts hit the roof, the driveway, the porch, and the garden. We do not have one in our backyard, but we do have them scattered in our woodland area. This variety of sedum is not native to Georgia, but is a great source of nectar for our bees. In the fall, when the autumn joy blooms, they draw many varieties of bees that literally drape themselves over the flowers for long periods of time, almost appearing as if they are intoxicated. We have serviceberry, blueberries, and dogwoods, one very large one in the backyard and numerous smaller ones in our woodland garden. Native seed plants are plentiful in our area. These are photos of several we have. Because they are great seed producers, you will get the benefit of having the birds spread them around your neighborhood as well. Do not cut off the tops of the flowers in the fall, as our native wildlife needs to peck away at them over fall and winter. Native host plants. Treated and undisturbed leaf litter area. Leave it alone and they will come. We have multiple areas like this. We have tall phlox, red buckeye, and swamp milkweed, which is the host plant for the monarch butterfly. Not pictured here are Solomon seal, coreopsis, bee balm, and coneflowers. Our water sources include a large concrete bird bath in the shade garden, smaller ceramic ones on the west side of the house and the front yard, and a water source near our beehives. There is also a stream at the bottom of the property. They do not need to be huge to be effective. Wildlife needs shelter just like we do, and our yard is not in short supply. Our woods, fallen trees, and even a pile of brush qualify for certification. The National Wildlife Federation requires 2. Audubon requires 4. Ground covers that include Pachysandra, creeping jenny, creeping veronica, hosta beds, Lenten roses or helleborus, 2 large stands of George Tabor azaleas, plus multiple areas of azaleas in the woods provide excellent cover for the birds. Wildlife needs places to raise their young. When we explored our creek, we discovered a den where fox raised their young. We also have mature trees, including oak, hickory, poplar, and pine. We leave dead and fallen trees in place in the woods and have a bluebird nesting box shown in the prior photo. This is a picture of one of 2 mason bee houses for native mason bees to live and reproduce. The other one was placed in the woodland garden. Follow safe wildlife practices. Clean bird feeders regularly. Keep outdoor lighting to a minimum. Install bird collision features on windows vulnerable to birds. Limit using leaf blowers as they can disturb the insects that wildlife and plants need. Place bird feeders within 3 feet or more than 30 feet from large glass panes. Whether you decide to go for a certification or not, follow the simple steps we discussed today will make your yard and our environment a happier and healthier place for all. Thank you for listening.
We hope that you will find our information informative and helpful. Thanks for watching, and please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel.